This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. It's all kicking off inside Labour. After sacking Rebecca Long-Bailey, Sir Keir Starmer has faced down the party's left-wingers in a tense confrontation. He met with Diane Abbott and John McDonnell as a petition calling for Miss Long-Bailey to be reinstated sailed past its 10,000 signature target. The Labour leader's showing no signs of backing down though, and our editorial column says he shouldn't.
Sir Keir Starmer has got the left on the run, this week firing the Shadow Education Secretary Rebecca Long-Bailey for retweeting a left-wing interview by an actress making the bizarre allegation that Israel was responsible for the death of George Floyd. Once, that was the sort of behaviour which led to promotion in Jeremy Corbyn's party. Now, it's a quick route to the exit. But that's not the only thing that's changing inside the party. Sir Keir's shown he means it about cracking down on hate speech in the party, and he's given himself the chance to find a shadow education secretary who is actually good at the job. None of this means the party is suddenly headed for power. There are years to go until the next election. Polls still put the Conservatives ahead. If Sir Keir keeps up the pace though, that's going to change.
Ayesha Hazarika is with me now. Ayesha, is Labour at civil war with itself again?
It does feel that way. I mean, Keir Starmer and his team and many other people, actually, prominent figures in the Labour Party have called for an end to factionalism. I mean, I just feel that it's a noble ambition, but it's just completely unrealistic. The Labour Party, since its kind of genesis, has always been steeped in factionalism. What people often forget is back in the history of the Labour Party split on these same grounds, the sort of hard left, the more pragmatic, progressive moderates. There's always been that split. But I think Keir Starmer had to do this. One of the reasons he won, and one of the things he's done very well on, is talking a strong game on getting rid of anti-Semitism. This was a really big test for him. And had he just let it go, I think the Jewish community would have been like, well, here we go again. Somebody who talks a good game, but they actually won't take the action on it. So I think he absolutely had to do this. And it sounded like there was a bit of shenanigans behind the scenes in terms of they wanted her to just take down her tweet and sort of apologise, and then she sort of obviously didn't want to do that. And when we interviewed her, she had just been in another spot of trouble over anti-Semitism, where she had hosted an event for her leadership contest campaign in Liverpool. A man had stood up, it was all recorded. He had made some really evidently anti-Semitic comments, and she had just let them slide. Like, she was kind of pandering to this guy, she didn't call him out. And Joe and I asked her about this, and she said, oh, actually, yeah, I really made a mistake. I should have I just didn't realize at the time, but I should have done. And so there's that event, there's this event. She said she had always stood up against the anti-Semitism, but when we quizzed her saying, well, what did you do? How did you raise it with Jeremy Corbyn? How many times did you raise it with Jeremy Corbyn? She had no kind of detail to give us. So the thing that I think is extraordinary is that you have a woman who's clearly intelligent. She's pretty hardworking. She's not daft, yet seems to have this blind spot on anti-Semitism, which does reveal, I think, something which is more troubling, which is that this is obviously something which is kind of hardwired into that wing of the party. But I think it's sad. I'm not one of these people who is like punching the air at the fact that Rebecca Long-Bailey's been sacked. I think she could have made a good contribution. But if we do take a step back, education has been a real weak spot for Keir Starmer in this whole coronavirus drama. And we've seen now twice at Prime Minister's questions, Boris Johnson has really tried to turn the tables on Keir Starmer and prosecuted this argument that the Labour Party has not been on the side of families and children. It's been more on the side of the unions. Now, whether that's fair or not, it's true to say that Rebecca Long-Bailey, we have not seen her every day out there punching at the government, really trying to, prosecute the case that Gavin Williamson, as Education Secretary, has not done a good job. Here's Labour's 5-point plan for what it would do to get kids back to school. So I think in a way she's been underperforming in the brief, and then this horrendous, not just a gaffe, but this, promotion of an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I think Keir Starmer sort of thought he had no other option.
Has she been underperforming, or has she just not been being used so much? Well, Labour is slightly concerned that perhaps she could make a mistake.
That's something that has definitely been raised by some of her supporters. Some of them were tweeting yesterday that actually the reason she's not been visible is the point you make. She was not allowed out onto the airways by the leader's office. But I think that's because they didn't trust her. It didn't seem like she had a very strong argument. The key issue is what a tragedy for, having had 5 years of this stain of anti-Semitism across the party, really cost the party heavily at the last general election, did huge reputational damage to the whole of the Labour Party. And here it is flared up again as well. And what's so ironic about the whole thing is that the woman, the actress Maxine Peake, she herself has now apologised and said that was wrong, that was misinformation, I'm really sorry. Yet defenders of Rebecca Long-Bailey are dying on a hill over this, including the former leader, Jeremy Corbyn, and his deputy, John McDonnell. And they are leading a delegation to go in and see Keir Starmer sort of as we speak. And I admire the chivalry from Jeremy Corbyn, riding to the rescue of Rebecca Long-Bailey. Rebecca Long-Bailey was very, very much a protege of John McDonnell. He very much wanted her to be leader of the party and succeed Jeremy Corbyn. So it's great that they're rushing to her aid. But where was that concern when Jewish female MPs like Luciana Berger and Louise Ellman were being hounded out of the party, when MPs like Ruth Smeeth, were getting just horrendous non-stop death threats, and Margaret Hodge as well. So I'm afraid, as you said at the beginning, I think this has become the kind of lightning conductor for the simmering factional war that just was desperate to explode again. I'd love to be all kumbaya and be like, hey guys, let's just hug it out and we can all be as one. But that's just not the Labour Party. I think what Keir Starmer has got to do is he's got to assert his authority, as he has done. He's got to send a clear message that I'm in charge of the party. These are my rules. This is going to be the culture that I want to see. I've got no truck with anti-Semitism and bullying and racism and all that type of thing. But the key thing, though, to keep a lid on all these civil wars is he's got to show the party he's doing well with the public. So if the polls continue to be good for him, if it looks like he's persuading Labour voters who turned their backs on the Labour Party and went Tory, if it looks like he's persuading them to look again at Labour, then that gives him strength within the party. So it's not going to be easy for him. I feel, my prediction is he's going to be fighting two opponents. He's going to be fighting, in fact, he's going to be fighting three opponents. He's going to be fighting Boris Johnson in England, Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, and Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, and the socialist group within the Labour Party as well. So he's going to be fighting on all fronts. He's going to be a busy man.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.